Madhumurthy with us, who is also an alumnus, and many people, including, of course, the speaker of the 10th Varghese Kurien Memorial Lecture, Sri Arun Mehra with us also, and we welcome our sister institutions, Dinesh Reddy from the Foundation for Ecological Security, and all of you to this interactive session. So, after Naren introduces Vijaykumar, he will make a presentation, and we will have at least 15-20 minutes, if not more, for question answer session. So, let us make it interactive, and I hope all of you will enjoy this talk. Over to you, Naren.
Good morning, everybody. Such a pleasure to stand here in my alma mater facing students yet once again. I've done this a couple of times. So, really love this ambience and love to stand here, and especially to introduce somebody like Vijay, who I have personally known for many years, in fact almost 25 years now. So, it's my pleasure. And when I introduce him, I'm not going to say much about natural farming, because that is not a subject I'm highly knowledgeable of. There are people here far more nuanced understanding of IZBNF and natural farming, etc. So, in my introduction, there won't be any natural farming. This is a much more natural friendship that happened before, I would say. Yeah, that is where I would talk about. My batchmate Murli has actually worked with Vijaykumar since the time he stepped out of Anand. He worked in Anand for a couple of years with Dr. Kurien directly, and then he went on to join Girijan Cooperative in, Andhra Pradesh, where Vijay used to head that institution. So, since then he knows him, so it would have been wonderful if he was here. He was my batchmate, so we in the same batch, 8th batch. So, today morning, a lot of us, in fact, most of you went for the NDDB walkathon, etc., but a lot of us actually went to a wonderful place. I think quite an inspiring visit we had to Mr. Sarvadaman, maybe doctor, I don't know, I think Dr. Sarvadaman Patel, who runs a Bhai Kaka farm just about half an hour from here. Very inspiring, beautiful visit. So, we are actually in a good mood, a lot of us, to actually learn and listen to more about natural farming. He is a 100% organic farmer, somebody who has practiced chemical farming for almost all his life, for quite a lot of in his life. I don't know if the Irmans here had a chance to go and visit the farm. If you must go and see it. It's very near, just cycling distance from here. Very inspiring, and he's practiced chemical farming in the temple of chemical farming in the US. Then he came back to India, practices more. Then he switched on totally to organic farming. He's got a 40-acre farm there. Very inspiring and a very practical person. So, he's actually the example, could be a living example for a lot of small farmers whom we want to work with, to pick up lessons from the little techniques and tactics, and also how he deals with the market, and a very practical person, not very hung up on extreme. And Min almost had a heart attack when he spoke about hybrid seeds and all, but so he's a very practical person that we found. So, we are in that kind of a little orientation to listen to more about IZBNF, but let me just introduce Vijay a little. I know him since 1995-96, when he visited my field area back in Hazaribagh, erstwhile Bihar, and you had no problem traveling on the back of my motorcycle. Showed him around the self-help group program that we were doing, and I really didn't know what he was planning at that time, because the questions he asked about rural transformation, as he said, he asked about SHGs, microcredit, but more also about the rural change and the issues in the village, and he had very wonderful interactions with the community. The next avatar I see him is, the self-help groups are catching fire in Andhra Pradesh and just spreading like large scale. So, like Dr. Kurien, who always had that national perspective, the scale perspective, the transformation perspective, I think Vijay, I've always found him, person who's got that. So, whatever he takes on, it is like the word I have in my mind for him is a crusader. I mean, he just kind of he just takes an idea, then kind of pushes forward with it, takes it to scale, and then you talk to him, when you speak to him, you will also get to know that he talks about large level change. Doesn't talk about just some pilot experiments here, there, which all of us NGOs anyway do. But how does that actually get into the national scale or even the global scale? Now with the climate change, etc., now it's a global problem. So he's able to do that, And then later on I saw him in the National Rural Livelihoods Mission from Andhra. I had visited Andhra when he was there. And then next I see him is in Delhi when he is the head of the National Rural Livelihoods Mission, when now about 10 to 12 crore women are part of the self-help groups, which many of us NGOs started back in the mid-80s. You know, a few groups here, a few groups there, but now almost all the poor women in this country today are part of the self-help groups. Totally thanks to Vijay, because he actually laid the foundation and led it for a considerable period of time. Actually really took it to a place where it is today, and now it is actually adding on more features. So, and I am sure you all know a lot about the National Rural Livelihoods Mission. So, he is the person who started the whole thing. And now I see him in the RYSS now, and it's become now a global template. So, everybody, in fact, I wrote a personal mail to him 2 days back. I met with the German delegation a couple of days back. They are here. The BM is there, the Director General. So, they had organized a small get together in the evening. So, I was also there, and they were just going bonkers over, they just come the day before from Andhra Pradesh. They had visited the RYSS, and you were there, they spoke about it. So, they had that whole model of natural farming, etc. in mind, and they said to us in that little gathering that this time the German funding to India will have a lot of natural farming content in it. So, the amount, etc. is still under negotiation. So, it's been able to create that kind of impact on even the global platform. That is what Vijay is. So, this is a little bit of introduction that I thought I wouldn't stand too long between you and his presentation. But this is where I think the natural farming today is. It is become a much more common name. It's come into a lot of common parlance discussions. Quite a lot of it is thanks to Vijay and his, I would say, crusade of wanting to take this to much larger scale. So, I wish the movement also all the best. The NCNF is again one of the creations by Vijay, in which I am also a committee member. So, through the National Coalition of Natural Farming and through the work of RYSS, let's hope we actually are able to take the message of natural farming, organic farming, sustainable agriculture, whatever you name it, to all the small and marginal holders in this country. So, thank you so much. Over to Vijay. Thank you, Vijay. You need this for that.
Yeah. This one, no? Yeah. That's the back. Yeah. Thank you. Is this visible? Okay. I think maybe these slides can be switched off. Yeah. Thank you very much, Shambhu, and thanks, Naren. I know Naren for such a long time, and I think he has exaggerated on many points. So, please don't believe everything. But yes, I think yesterday there was one young person who was with me, Divya. So, she had two questions. No, one question, and she answered in the end. She said, what can a young person do? So, then I was giving her whatever a young person can do. And then in the end she says, Dr. Kurien was 25 years when he was old, when he led Amul. I said, there you have the answer. Young people can do anything. So, that's my hope. And that's the, I think, message for every young person, because unfortunately, we, all of us collectively, the elder generation, has made your future a very difficult one. So, we are now looking to you for that inspiration. So, I was very impressed with this young person who was with me, who escorted me from the airport to this one. She taught me something. So, I have been coming to IRMA for a very long time, but I've never given a lecture here. So I must thank Shambhu for that. So it's taken me 30 years to come and give a lecture in IRMA. But I've been very fortunate to have had people from IRMA with me right from 91, 30 years now, starting with Sri Kumar. And I didn't even interview him. I just wrote to the faculty coordinator. Professor Nagabrahmam used to be there, and he sent me one name. I just said, yes, please send him. Then that person didn't join. Then Sri Kumar came and sheepishly said, this person has not joined, can I join you? I had not known the person whom Nagabrahmam recommended or the second person. I said, please join me. And I tell you, the kind of impact Sri Kumar had on me is enormous. And then of course Murli and Manoharan, there were two people who were working directly with Dr. Kurien and Dr. Amrita Patel, and I recruited both of them when I was in GCC. NDDB said, we can't relieve both of them, you take one. So actually Manoharan joined me first, and then Murli joined me after a lag of 1 year. And I think only last week we finalized one Irman who is from 18 or 20 batch. So therefore a 30-year track record of recruiting Irmans, but first time I am speaking here. So I am really thankful to Shambhu for this opportunity, and I have been inspired by Dr. Kurien. Of course, the first meeting was not very good. It was in 84, we were all young IAS officers who were on our Bharat Darshan. So as part of that, we visited NDDB, and then we were ushered to Mr. Kurien's chambers. He took one look at us and then sort of dismissed us and said, you're all obstructionists, this, that. So my God, the batch got wild. What does he think of himself? But then I realized the truth of what he was saying, but I didn't want to sort of annoy the batch. So that was my first introduction to him. And subsequently, I didn't meet him, but I did meet Dr. Amrita Patel and requested her whether they could move away from milk, but also into agriculture commodities. But at that time, she said, we are not interested. But Dr. Kurien's inspiration to me is one of the most long-standing inspirations. In GCC, I spent most of my first years of my career in tribal areas. In fact, before the women SAG, I was known all over the country as the tribal man. That was my beginnings. And then I realized that people were getting exploited. The tribal communities were the most exploited ones. And it was always, somebody from outside trying to help them. So, because I worked in the tribal areas, and when I tried to restore their lands, I was transferred out, my first assignment, in just 1 year. Then another assignment, again, I tried to restore their lands, I was transferred out. So when I was in GCC, then I thought I should not be the hero, people should be the heroes. And then I heard of how young people could catalyze communities to come together. So take the leadership from outsiders to the people themselves. And then I thought of Dr. Kurien's example of spearhead teams, professionals and people coming together. So that was the example, that is how I recruited so many Irmans. I also recruited people from IITs, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, just to go to a village and spend, my contract with them was 3.5 years, 6 months training and 3 years you stay in the village. No agenda. You do whatever people want you to do. In fact, this was my learning after my mistakes with the first batch. Manoharan, I don't know, any one of you have heard of Manoharan? Oh, in Naren's batch, no? Yeah. So I did a lot of training for them and then sent them to the village. So I had recruited them as commodity coordinators. Because I am a cooperative, so I thought they will organize Niger seed somewhere, turmeric somewhere. Yeah, Manoharan was to organize turmeric. So then after a couple of months they came and told me, sir, we don't like this name. People's problems are health problems, education problems, they are being exploited by the government functionaries. So then I said, what do you want? And I said, they told me that, no, we don't give us this tag of commodity. So then I changed the name to community coordinators. I said, okay, no agenda, nothing, you do whatever you want. But 3 years later they said we have to work on livelihoods, I mean, but we don't start with livelihoods. We have to start with what people want. So that was a big lesson from Manoharan, one Laki from Assam, then Bhanumati. So this is my first batch of people whom I had sent to the villages. So professionals with community, building community leadership, seeing how we bind communities to come together, take action, take collective action. So that it's not the collector or the IS officers or others who are the heroes, people should be the heroes. So that was my most important learning, and inspiration came from the great man. And now we are in a much bigger mess, so we need to be really inspired. So this is where we are now. We have multiple emergencies. Farmers' distress is already high, is increasing, but perhaps many of you don't know that the food you are eating is also very dangerous on account of chemical residues, and this is the food that you are eating, we are all eating, not you, we are all eating. This is a survey in UK in 50 years. They said the level of every nutrient in almost every kind of food has declined between 10 and 100%. And this was 30 years ago. I am sure it would have declined even further. And this is the analysis they did for 27 kinds of vegetables, 10 kinds of meat. So this is a very serious problem, and that is why you have the fastest growing set of diseases are what called as autoimmune diseases, because there are some trace minerals which your body is not getting, and that comes from the food. So you have residues, chemical residues which should not be there. You are not having those essential ingredients which should be there. And then there are heavy metal contamination, whether it's arsenic, lead, mercury, nickel, cadmium in rice, wheat. Punjab even has arsenic. I think entire eastern India also, Bengal and other places. So this is a very serious crisis from the food that we are eating. And then we have the other problems of loss of soil degradation. They say it takes about 1000 years to build a 1 inch of topsoil. Now whole world is bleeding in terms of loss of soil, which is very unsustainable. But in the case of India, we account for 2.2% of the land mass, but we are losing 23% topsoil every year. So it's really a soil emergency. World as a whole loses 24 billion tons per annum, and India alone is losing 5 billion tons per annum. So every hectare of land that you are seeing is losing 15 tons every year. Then you already know the water stress. Again, worldwide 70% fresh water is used for agriculture. India uses 84% of fresh water for agriculture. And there is a bigger danger. If 50 years ago, if 1 hectare of land was required to use water once a week, thanks to chemical agriculture, loss of soil organic matter, soil becoming impermeable, now you need to irrigate every alternate day. So, while you won't produce more water, at the same time for producing the same food, you will be requiring more and more water. So, that is another crisis. And in any case, heat waves, decreased biodiversity. So, all the zoonotic diseases that we have had is on account of our encroaching into the wildlife territory. So, COVID will not be the last pandemic. So, you have these very serious problems, and all of them are going to exacerbate on account of the climate emergency. So, you have farmers are the frontline warriors of climate change. But this is the irony. The way we are doing agriculture is causing climate change. So, this is the very serious issue. So, it is like you have a fire, in order to put out the fire you are pouring petrol in it. That is exactly what we are doing. And this happened when this loss of soil organic matter at a rate faster than what is put by the plants started when agriculture started about 10,000 years ago. But then with low population density, etc. So, the regeneration potential of the land was also very significant. But it's only over the last 150-200 years that deforestation, forest fires, burning crop residues, keeping land fallow or deep ploughing, excess irrigation, etc. and of course, wind and water erosion. So, this over the last 150-200 years have accelerated the loss of the green cover. You see the land that we have is a finite land. So, ice free land is around 14 billion hectares, of which 5 billion hectares are already man-made deserts, and we have desertification increasing, land degradation, desertification. There is a whole UN convention on combating desertification. So, the last one, the biocides, use of synthetic chemicals over the last worldwide 70 years, post World War II, but in India after the Green Revolution, so say 50 years. So, this has actually accelerated the ability of plants to actually put the carbon down into the soil. So, it is like we are increasing the numerator and decreasing the denominator. So, that is what has happened. So, now this is what is the solution? So, it is basically mimicking nature that we can have a long lasting solution. So, whatever we are doing, if it goes against principles of nature, then we are already in a very dangerous situation. So, we will be tilting more in terms of catastrophe. So, slowly the global organizations are also realizing the role of the food system in inducing climate change or in tackling climate change, but currently it is a negative force, because as I said 34% of the greenhouse gas emissions are on account of food system, of which 70% directly is on account of the land management. This is a global figure, it can vary from country to country. So, how did nature actually green the planet? And what do we learn from that? How do we mimic the way nature actually did this work? So, what happens? Because only the green leaves can manufacture food, they are called autotrophs. So, through the photosynthesis process, carbon dioxide and water are converted into carbohydrates, and then oxygen is a byproduct. But the plants are very clever because they can't move around for the food, so they have to attract the food to themselves. So 40% of the photosynthetes or the food produced through photosynthesis is used by the shoot system for more leaves, branches, flowers, fruits, grains. But anywhere around 30% of these sugars or food is used by the root system, going deeper, branches, sub-branches, but 30% is actually exuded into the soil. It is a gift to the soil, and it is a gift, it is a purpose, it is not a gift without thinking. This is the food for the microbes. So, good quality soil, every teaspoonful will have around 7 to 10 billion microbes, bacteria, fungi, archaea, protozoa, then higher order nematodes, even then higher orders all the way up to earthworms in the soil. So, this is the basis. So, what do these sugars are then used by these microbes, and then they bring the plant whatever the plant requires: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, boron. Every plant requires 30, 40 elements and not just NPK as people have been taught. I don't know how many of you are agriculture college with agriculture background. Can you please raise your hands? Oh my God, so I think I'll have a lot of problems. Okay, but please listen to me, then you can fire at me afterwards. So, you don't require just 6. I was also in charge vice chancellor of my agriculture university for about 6 months. I used to ask my professors, how many elements you think a plant requires? So, they said, sir, initially we thought 3, then by the time we were in college we were told you require about 12. Now we think plants require around 18, 20. So, Naren, this is about just 4 or 5 years ago, and in any case I go to them after doing my reading. So I tell them human beings require 59 elements, every human being has 59 elements. So, all this has to come from plants or the animals that you eat. Animals can't make these things, so they have to eat the plants. So, every plant requires 30, 40, 50 elements. There could be some trace minerals. Even arsenic is there in the plants, gold is there in the plant, maybe parts per billion. So, this bacteria, the fungi, the archaea are the ones bringing these nutrients in the proportions required by the plant. And that is why plants grown in very good healthy soils, they taste better, they have better shelf life, they are good for your health, because they have all the elements that their DNA entitles them to. And if we did not put chemicals, kill the microbes, then everybody should get that food. So, what does this do? It is taking carbon from the air and pushing it into the soil. So, maximizing photosynthesis rate per acre of land actually maximizes carbon sequestration. So, that is the first benefit that you get. Second, every additional gram of carbon in the soil means you can hold 8 grams of water. So, the water holding capacity increases. And third, I just mentioned to you the nutrition diversity that is there in every grain that you consume, and then the soil structure. So, soil structure also comes through the action of the fungal hyphae, bacteria and other microbes, soil particles, the carbon. So, the soil which is typically non-porous and non-permeable becomes porous. So, about 50% of by volume of soil should be air, 50%, 60%, then you say it is good quality soil. The third part I will take up later, water vapor harvested for irrigation, that is I will take up later. So, now what is it that we are doing in Andhra Pradesh or anywhere in the world, wherever you are practicing regenerative agriculture, these are the universal principles. These are not only for India, or it is applicable all over the world. So, the first is basically to ensure that your soil is always covered with plants, diverse plants, so that you maximize the photosynthesis rate. The second, obviously, you should not disturb the soil. So, the crop diversity is very interesting. University of Vienna in Germany, they have done experiment for about 17 years on the impacts of crop diversity on soil fertility. There are some experiments in Canada, experiments in New Zealand. So, it is very well established and we are able to see it on ground. So, not to disturb the soils, then integrating animals into farming, and biostimulants as necessary catalysts. So, this is actually unique to India. Typically the cow dung based inputs, urine, so biological inputs from the cattle is very unique to India. But you can use it, you can use seaweeds for this work, you can use compost teas, and the biodynamic has its own formulae, Korea has its own system. So, there are very diverse systems for stimulating the soil microbiome. But in India, what we are doing through the cow dung based formulations is actually very, very effective, reduces the transition time. But that is not the only way, there are many, many choices. Then pest management, not through chemicals, through agronomical practices, and then botanical formulations. And keeping the soil covered with organic residues, essentially crop residues, is also very important to reduce the evaporation losses and also to facilitate the decomposition into the soil. And the only red box, as you can see, no synthetic fertilizers, no biocides. So, these are some of the practices. This is a polycropping that we encourage even in orchards. So, our formula is greater the diversity the better. We started with 9, now farmers are doing 18 different crops. We are now trying an experiment in Guntur district with 9 crop diversity, 18 crop diversity and 28 crop diversity. So, whatever they can, so the diverse categories of plants. So, cereals, pulses, oil seeds, spices, different vegetable crops. So, the wider the diversity, the better it is for the soil microbiome. And this is a seed inoculum called Bijamrit, cow dung, cow urine, uncontaminated soil, lime, fermented. We say 12 hours, there are some people who are doing it for 3 days also. So, these are some things which need to be tested. So, this gives the seed a coating of bacteria, fungi, and when you sow them, they are sending signals to the bacteria and fungi and other microbes in the soil. So, it is a very elegant switching mechanism, because these microbes are in a coma. So, they need a trigger to wake up. So, this provides that trigger. Even seedlings are dipped in this. Then this is a soil amendment, it is called Ganajivamrit. So, same cow dung, cow urine, uncontaminated soil, and then jaggery and pulses flour. So, this multiplies the microbes in good soils and microbes in the animal dung and urine. So, it is to multiply the microbes. It is not a fertilizer, and that is a big confusion, because people, even my own batchmates have been asking, अरे हमारे ज़माने में करते थे कोई yields नहीं आ रहे थे, that's why we switched to green revolution. So, I tell them, look, the idiom is same, but it is different. You needed 15 tons of farmyard manure, even now ICR recommends 15 tons of farmyard manure, but with this you require only 1 ton to start with. And with a period of time, you may not even need that, because once the soil biology is optimized, then the crop diversity itself is enough to keep it going. You may not even need this. Our farmers are actually saying, sir, we are now reducing the quantities. So this is the difference between what was traditional agriculture, and that's the problem I have with ICR also, because they are saying cow dung में कितना nitrogen है, कितना phosphorus है, कितना potassium है, वो पौधों को कितना चाहिए, so then it won't work. So they gave, I mean, hopefully I'll try to stop that. They are giving a report that there is 50% deficit of nitrogen. So I told him, this farmer has taken beautiful crops for the last 4 or 5 years. If there is 50% deficit in nitrogen, how will the crop come? Or even if it comes for 1 year, will you be able to grow a second crop? They have no answers to that. But this is what has been taught, that you are depleting, so it's like arithmetic. So they are doing arithmetic, whereas biology is different, not arithmetic. So this is one of the problems. So please remember that, that's why I have used the word biostimulant. It's not a fertilizer. You are not replacing the nitrogen that you give through urea through cow dung. So that's the big confusion, not only in India, worldwide. So there is a liquid formulation. So basically you are putting the soil amendment in the soil before sowing, then along with the seed, and then when the crop grows, along with the crop growth. And then when the, you have a reproductive phase, there are different tonics. Again, biological formulations, then they act on the leaves, the philosphere. And these are the botanical pest preparations. So as you can see, the biological formulations, these are not complex technological things that only some BSc agriculture, MSc agriculture will understand. So anything to scale up means the last person should be able to internalize it. So the technology should be such that everybody can apply it. Otherwise things don't get scaled up. So therefore that's a constant challenge. How do you take this knowledge to people and enable them to act? So if we don't take the technology or knowledge in a way that people understand, internalize, practice, then scaling up doesn't happen. So this is the scaling up, that this is our snapshot of where we are today, and we started in 2016 through the agriculture department. I was heading the agriculture department at that time. We enrolled about 40,000 farmers in about 700 villages. So last year our footprint is in 28% villages in the state, and we have enrolled 10% farmers. And last 3 years we have also had a special focus on farm workers, landless farm workers. So that's why you can see from 2019 we are also having a separate intervention for the landless farm workers, because they represent about 30% in a village. You can't have an intervention only for the ones having lands. So 86% of farmers in Andhra Pradesh or anywhere in India are small and marginal farmers, so it should make sense for them, and it should make sense, be relevant for the landless farm workers. So that's how you get the whole village behind it. So we are not waiting for the big farmers to change, they will change on their own, so I don't have to do anything special for that. Our focus is on the small and marginal farmers and landless. So this is the scaling up. I'll again, in the subsequent slides, I'll tell you how scaling up happens. And the funding is from government. So I have tied up around 1800 crores till 2024. That's not enough, but whatever I require, I'll get it, because the results are so good. But we are also supported by philanthropy. So Azim Premji philanthropy supported us to a tune of 100 crores. At the beginning, even before any results were visible. They say it's a very powerful idea for the small and marginal farmers, so we are ready to support it. But since they have done now, the other philanthropies also who would be happy to support this, but they took the biggest risk, I must say. So then what are the results? Because a lot of people say that, you know, it's not working, doesn't give results. So we have now had, these are the results I am presenting after 6 seasons, and this assessment is done by independent agencies. So we take farmers who have transited, because I said there is a transition time, it does not happen overnight. 3 to 5 years it takes for a farmer to move from partial chemical, partial organic to completely organic. So we take those farmers who have transited. Right now around 25% of our universe have transited. Maybe next year we increase the transformation rate to about 40%, 50%. So we have taken the people who have transited and looked at what happens to their yields. I will just present you the last year, the year for which we have the results. So these are the 5 major crops, they account for more than 65% area, and the last one is important because it is from the tribal area, finger millet. So you have rice, groundnut, cotton, pulse crop, black gram and red gram, and you can see the yields are, actually there is no yield penalty. Many crops actually the yields of natural farming are higher. Cost reduction is very significant, and the net income increase for farmers is very, very significant, anywhere from 20,000 to 40,000 rupees per hectare. Of course, percentage terms it is, you know, anywhere from 60% to 7 times. That is an outlier, the finger millet. Then this is the Rabi result, 2020-21. You have similar results on the net income, and we have in the case of groundnut very, very significant increase in the yields. And this, as I said, is in the tribal area. So I think Naren's footprint is in all the tribal areas of the country. So in tribal areas, for rain-fed cultivation, we are getting extraordinary results right from year 1. And that is why I think the first agreement we are going to sign is with the Odisha government. So it has just been cleared by the Odisha government for technical cooperation in the tribal areas. Then this is again very important from water consumption, and these results are so incredible because farmers have been telling me right from the beginning that we require less water, our crops are able to withstand prolonged dry spells. So I wanted to know how much better. So then we did a very large survey, almost 1,000 farmers, and these are the crops, most important crops: paddy, groundnut, chili and cotton. So we looked at those who were using groundwater, because every state government incurs huge amount of subsidies for free power supply to farmers. So in fact this request came from my finance secretary. He said, sir, aapko malum hai, we are spending 50,000 rupees per annum on every borewell, and whatever savings you can deliver on that will be a huge boost for your program. So then that is when I started measuring it, otherwise kisan bol rahe the, hum bhi were also happy. So then this is what has come as a surprise to us. We find 48% reduction in water requirement, 53 in groundnut, 57% in cotton, chili. So Naren, you realize very significant. So I thought if my internal study says people will not believe me, so now I asked Niti Aayog to get an independent assessment done. So the Ministry of Water Resources body is going to do this work. Valamtari has agreed to do this work. Then I also wanted this to go to the international audience. So I have another Administrative Staff College of India and another private agency to come. I had also asked IMI. So IMI and one more, they are involved in the study with Valamtari. Because if this is true, then this is valid. In any case, I spoke to the farmers because I don't leave it to statistics. So I have to speak to the farmers to know whether the statistics and what they are saying is correct. So it's incredible. The farmers, typically they told me during their father's time, they had to irrigate a crop once a week. And because of chemical agriculture, before he switched over to natural farming, he was irrigating once every alternate day. And he says, sir, after 3 years, I have reached my father's time. Now I irrigate only once a week. So I said, you should go to your grandfather's time once a 2 weeks. So this has a tremendous impact on the water situation in the country. And Gujarat also, you should know, there are a lot of rain-fed lands and semi-arid areas. So this is God sent for. No, we didn't change anything, Naren. Ye jo kar raha hai, we did paired examples. We didn't do any changes. Even the World Bank was saying, we'll put sensors, we'll do this, we'll do that. Arey baba, wo sab chhod do, wo as it is without any changes, वो पानी कम पी रहा है जमीन, वो काफी है. Why do I need to add? If I add, fine. But this is scalable, isn't it? We didn't ask them to change anything. We just said practice natural farming because reduces your cost, increases everything, and this is a byproduct. So no change there. We did paired comparison. And then same crop, same variety. So this is incredible results. Then this is what we do with the landless poor, is basically creating homestead gardens. So the 12, 18 different kinds of vegetables, fruits they consume throughout the year, and this was really godsend during the corona time. They said we didn't have to go outside the village, we could consume these vegetables and we could also give it to our neighbors, neighboring villages. We are also improving this so that throughout the year they get different vegetables. Then biodiversity has increased. Then this is last year floods. I am also getting photographs of this year's floods. So just neighboring fields. So one field is intact, the other one has completely collapsed. And in these days when, or in this time, when you will have more frequent floods, so resilience is going to be extremely important, not just yield per hectare. This is cotton. So in any case, I will talk about the drought strategy later on, because we have this is for floods. So for drought we have a even more fantastic solution. So I will talk about it a little later. So now I will just move into how scaling up happens. So that is the most important part. Yes? No, Arey Baba, sab same hai. It's not that we didn't plan it, no. So typically what happens, one field, next field, it will be brothers or the same farmer, half his land is that side, so he's not going to buy a different seed. So jo bhi hai, nothing, no change. So I'll just spend some time on this. See, worldwide, everybody knows that agroecology is good for farmers, good for our health and good for nature. This, kisse puchenge batayenge. But it's not scaling up. So worldwide is about 0.5% are certified organic farmers worldwide. The numbers vary, you may have around 540 million farmers worldwide. So it's, even if you say there are people not certified, in any case it's not more than 5% globally. And whereas in Andhra Pradesh, in about 5 years, we have enrolled 10% farmers. And our objective is over the next 6-7 years, we should enroll every farmer and farm worker. So this is what is the subject of discussion in so many forums, that how do you scale up. And also this is more difficult to scale up than the self-help group program that we did, because it's so deep rooted in farmers' minds that without using chemicals, fasal nahi aayega. 2 generations perhaps. It's only very old farmers who greet me very happily when I go to a new village, that you are bringing back farming during my childhood days. The other fellows are saying, sir, fasal nahi aayega. So this is something gone into the minds of the farmers. And then you have, the agriculture department, agriculture university, the pesticide dealer, chemical dealer. So this is the knowledge that they have, and this is the only knowledge they have. I mean, whether it's good intentions, bad intentions, but it's the only knowledge that they have. So they are clinging to that knowledge. So that's why it's very difficult. Then how do you take it to every farmer? How do you ensure behavior change happens year after year? And how do you go to the poorest farmer? And how is this system to sustain on its own after the intervening agency, whether NGO or government, has withdrawn? So these are all the questions. So I have just put what I think are very important. First, I believe government support is very important, because scale comes by getting the government involved. But government alone is not enough to do this, because government has its own contradictions. I was heading the agriculture department where we ourselves were advocating chemical agriculture. So when I used to go to the villages, the farmers would say, you are the one who told us to use the fertilizers, and now you are telling us not to use it. So there is a lot of contradictions. So government is required, but government alone is not enough. So that is the important lesson, because government means funds milega, then there is at least you can tell the farmer, bhai government ne kaha hai fertilizers mat use karo. So even if the part of the government or bulk of the government is saying use fertilizers, but there is one part of the government which is saying don't use. So that itself, that small opening is enough. Resources, advocacy, so government. Then knowledge. Knowledge, as I mentioned, the package of practices, the lens is it in harmony with nature or not? That is the only lens. And once it satisfies that lens, question is how do you take it to farmers? So we have developed multiple methods, and one of the most effective ones is a video dissemination. So we have close to 800 videos on different packages of practices, inspiration stories. So this has been one of our most successful methods of taking knowledge to farmers. And then this knowledge, the practices, I am always going back to modern science. So we have very good collaborations with very eminent scientific institutions within the country, outside the country, because the naysayers are, very noisy. So I have to have somebody to whom they listen. So if I just say that, there is a small KVK which is saying that this is great, that will not do. I have to bring the UN, I have to bring FAO, I have to bring the CGIR. So very strategically I have been using the international research agencies to counter the other noisy elements. So this is about knowledge and continuous innovation from farmers, from us, from the scientific institutions. But what has enabled us to scale up in 5 years is not anything great done by us in this 5 years, but the foundation of the women self-help groups that we laid in Andhra Pradesh right from the year 2000. And I didn't dream that one day this network is going to be an answer to climate change. So in my opinion, this is the most important investment in the country in organizing women everywhere in the country into these collectives. And today, 10 years after NRLM started, around 7 crore women across the country are organized. So I remember my first mission statement, which seemed so audacious at that time. I said 7 to 10 crore women will be organized. 7. 70 million, yeah, 7. This is the Ministry of RD's data of 2021. So, this women's network is critical. The second is the dissemination. Knowledge dissemination is not a top down system. Is it champion farmers taking it to other farmers? So, the very democratic dissemination system, trustworthy dissemination system is responsible for this. And then the role of external organizations, government, NGOs and CBOs in doing that hand holding. I mentioned here hand holding until full adoption. So, that is another element in our program, that we just do not give a lecture or give a video and then go away. We know it is a 7, 10, 15 year kind of work. And then finally, as I mentioned, both partnerships with national, global institutions. So, this is the women's self-help group journey in Andhra Pradesh. 2000 we started the program through SERP, and I had initiated a work, I think Shambhu knows that, is the NPM work, non-chemical pest management work. So, in terms of scaling up, I was inspired by the work done by CSA. It is an NGO in Andhra Pradesh, and around 2004 they said that one village has become pesticide free, and that was a cotton crop. I was so stunned. So, then I called Dr. Sanghi, who was heading the organization. We had a long discussion, and he finally said, Vijaykumar ji, the technology is very simple. What took us time was to organize the people. Then I said, Sanghi ji, wo mere liye aasan hai. वो technology मेरे पास नहीं था. So, let us put the two together. So, then we got our women self-help groups interested in NPM, and that is how it scaled up. So, the technology support, he said, sir, वो तो 5-10% का काम है, वो कोई बड़ी चीज़ नहीं है. The organizing the farmers was a difficult task. So, I think when we were able to put this together, so the NPM program was very rapidly scaled up, but all the time it was facing opposition from the agriculture department. So, 2015 I became Special Chief Secretary Agriculture of Andhra Pradesh. So, then I thought now I must do it through the agriculture department. Then वो तो फिर ना नहीं कहेंगे. So, then that is the second part where I made it through the agriculture department. But they are still not believing it fully, it will take some more time. So, even though it was the agriculture department, but the ground level work was done by the women self-help groups and the CRPs. So, the department was more like event management or not coming in the way or just to sort of hold the program, but the real work was done by the people themselves. But now slowly the department has internalized. Many young officers are telling me, sir, this is the future of agriculture. So, it takes time, it is not easy. So, the women self-help groups have been critical in scaling it up. Without this, we could not have scaled up. Without that investment in social capital, this scaling up cannot happen, and that is my confidence that this program gets scaled up in the country because of again this architecture of rural women coming together. Now we also have the farmer producer organizations. So, this grassroots collectivization, grassroots collectives are very critical for any technological diffusion. Yeah, okay, I will close. So, this is the structure of the women self-help groups. We have 90% of women in Andhra Pradesh in rural areas are organized. This is the money that they have mobilized. Then we did a survey, as I mentioned, that is what 2019, then we realized we have such a large number of people who are landless poor. So, how does this intervention help them? So, that is when so here what we do is we target the SHG leaders. So, our community resource persons, they interact with the SHG leaders. So, once they change, they include in the group's agenda. So, there is discussion there is mutual support, and then this adoption by other members happens. So, this is the community resource persons. So you can see we didn't go by their educational qualifications, age. So this lady is almost, I think, 70 plus, and this gentleman here who is training them. But they in turn incubate heroes within the village. So we have close to 6,000, we'll be adding another 4,000-5,000 heroes. So these community heroes, community resource persons are critical for this transformation. And we support them through training them in video dissemination, through training in the farmer field schools. This is something which FAO is supporting us. We use ICT for our work. Yeah, this is important because the kind of time it takes for, we need to, every farmer in a village must change, their practices must change. So all villages, all farmers, all farms and all practices. So that's why it takes time. Now it doesn't mean that 8 years the work is over. At that time the work transits to the community based organization. Then there is more light touch by the promoting agency, whether it is government or NGO. So each year bulk of the responsibility then gets transferred to the community based organizations, and that is the most important lesson. Then the NGO or the government should do other things which the community level entities cannot do. So these are the various organizations, scientific organizations working with us, so the World Agroforestry Center, University of Reading, FAO, variety. In fact, Tufts and Woodhull Research Institute, they are very eminent climate research institutions in USA. And we just about to sign a agreement with government of Germany. They are giving us a grant of 200 crores to set up a global agroecology research station. And we are also, I think Niti Aayog will be part of this in Andhra Pradesh, yeah. We are also working on the health implications. Then we have a range of institutions within the country working with us. Then we have a big science team within the organization which does variety of experiments on ground, because then the cycle here is short. We have some doubts, we do the experiments, then by next year we are able to tell the farmers, we can incorporate the changes in practices. Yeah, this, how much does it cost and why should it be supported? So my own estimates are, it's about 15,000 rupees over 8 years for one farmer. Not every year, over 8 years. So it's about 2,000 rupees per year. So to complete this work in Andhra Pradesh, I will require around 10,000 crores. So then I looked at why the state government should do this. So by investing in this money, the savings that I can bring about in the electricity subsidy is twice this amount. And the savings in the fertilizer subsidy is around 4 times. Now this is before the price hikes of fertilizer. So we 1.5 saal purana figure hai. So now the benefits will be even more as and when the energy prices keep going up. So the benefits to government in terms of avoided subsidies will be even higher. Yeah, I think now I will just show the film and close. There are some more slides, but I will leave it here. But I just want to show this film and comment on this for about 2-3 minutes. Yeah. One second, just finish this and then. Yeah. This is, one second, Shambhu, this is Anantapur, hot summer. You can see no vegetation anywhere. And this is the only plot of land where there is greenery. Yeah. This is in May. You can close this. So this is a breakthrough of harnessing water from the air. So we have around water in the air is up to 50,000 parts per million, and that water in the air is perhaps the most important greenhouse gas. You don't think of water vapor as a greenhouse gas, isn't it? It's carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide and methane. Water vapor is around 80% of the greenhouse gases. 11% is carbon dioxide, the remaining are the other gases. The heat effect, 95% is on account of water vapor, re-radiated heat. So 4% other gases, 4% CO2, 1% other gases. So through natural farming, we are imbuing the plants with certain qualities that they are able to harness this water from the air. So that is an example where in Anantapur, it's a semi-arid district, even one crop a year is difficult, 2 out of 5 years are maybe when they get some crop, 2 out of 5 years. And here, I don't know if how many of you know Telugu, because that lady is saying I am getting money every day. You can't imagine that. So it's something where they get money throughout the year, 3 crops a year. So this is the kind of miracle that is possible through natural farming, and can happen anywhere. So thank you very much. I just also wanted to say that you're all young professionals getting into your life. So till now, I think what we have been told is, production system is by and large stable. You worry about marketing, you worry about financing, but I just want to tell you it is very unstable. So without stabilizing the production system, your financial system, if crops keep failing every year, then what will happen to the money lent to the farmers or money lent to any food industry, food enterprise. So you have financial instability, you have food security instability. So we are reaching a very unstable situation. So just keep that in mind, because I don't know how many, whether, I don't know what you have been taught, I don't know what Shambhu has been teaching you. So please remember, the production system is no longer stable. So the quicker we internalize that and we sort of make our agriculture curriculum, the business management curriculum, financial management curriculum, incorporate that, the better. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Vijaykumar ji, for an excellent presentation. We have time for a few questions. Please raise your hand and introduce yourself, and don't say I'm from PRM 41, but tell which state are you from. Yeah. So we have a few mics. Can I have a few volunteers?
Yeah. Myself, Balakrishnan, from Vritti, based out of Bangalore. We work in about 11 states in the country. Thank you, sir. It was wonderful to hear from you and meeting also after a long time in IRMA. My question was, I think I saw that it's taking about 8 years to do this transformation. What is the kind of cost it takes? And also, what is the cohort or the working with this community, and how many of them will drop out in this 8 years? Or to the transformation, there is always dropout will be there, yeah. But what is the percentage that just would like to understand, and then.
Okay.
Thank you.
8 years, I already mentioned, the cost over 8 years is, as per our estimates, around 15,000 rupees per family, assuming that there is social capital there, that there is already women's self-help group or a FPO. So, I have not costed the formation of a self-help group or federation, so it is minus that. Now, over 8 years, we are finding that virtually all the small and marginal farmers, 100% they enroll, and there are very few dropouts. We still haven't tested, getting all the large farmers in. So, currently I have just kept that out of my mind. Hopefully they will, but if I can take care of 86%, I think that's good enough. In tribal areas, we've had 100% transformation. So, we already have around 200 villages. In the 4th year itself, they have become bio villages, 100% all farmers, whatever arable area is there. So, I am hoping the rest of the people will have as much sense as our tribal communities have. But I also believe in a tipping point. So, if you have 1/3 farmers in a village switching over, then this becomes the mainstream. So, our struggle is, does this become mainstream? When does it become mainstream? Then if somebody wants to drop out, it is up to them. My sense is that it's too good for anybody to drop out. So, yeah, we still haven't tested those waters, but from tribal areas I can say that 100% all of them have transited. Sir.
Can we alternate between the student and non-student? Yeah. So, let's keep the mic. Oh, I don't
That rule doesn't apply to you.
But actually your introduction of me as being a non-student is actually what I want to correct. I think, all of us in the presence of this great student and teacher must be students. Yeah. That's all right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. This has been the most learningful and inspiring presentation I've seen for some years. And as I mentioned to you this morning, since I was in the planning commission, I wanted to. I couldn't get to. This Vijay, the other Vijay, I did get to see. So thank you so much. Now, you have, and this is also linked with the previous question, said that the substrate of the self-help groups was what enabled this movement to take seed and then to grow. So now, we talk about there's a path dependency of change. And so what comes first? The social substrate, the soil of the social movement to take the seeds of the technical change. This is for Shambhuji here also. I have been feeling that, and this I shared with you this morning, that in creating movements of change, because of what you mentioned, the scientists think of the technical sides, and so we need to make a case to them. But that's not enough.
Yes, sir.
It's actually what you did before you got here, is creating the social movement of change. But there's a path dependency question here. If there is not a women's self-help movement in a state, then how? Does every social movement have to take the form of a women's self-help group? Just a question to you.
Sir, sir, I didn't have to face that because it was already built up here. So I took it for granted. I mean, I had already worked on this. But my sense is the two can go together, because this can become the organizing principle. So when we started the self-help group movement, it was around their, various problems with, indebtedness, problems with hunger, so problems within, between men and women. There are a lot of problems. So, I mean, in India, I don't see that as a problem because we have a very good, virtually all the villages, we have this. But the question you asked was asked by me by NGOs in Africa. They actually said, Vijay, now you give us a lecture on the social mobilization process because that is where we are weak. So, sir, with a lag of a year or so, this can be done. It's not such a difficult thing. So, it's not that you need to build this, it can go together.
The word together exactly, and Shambhuji, I would say this, that in IRMA itself, my exposure is very small. As you said, I'm just a baby student in this place. I'm finding, and this is to your point about agriculture and rural and the social movements, that in the agenda of how to help natural social movements to grow, we try and give them the technical side of it. And our attention is so much to teach them the technology of the science and to apply it, and business science included, that we kill the very essence, the soil, rather than. So we have to learn, as he has, and focus very much more, my view, in the real soil, the real seed, which is the social side, and let the people then absorb whatever technology they need. What would you say to that?
I agree with you, sir. All I'm saying is that this should go together, because the fact that they are facing this problem itself becomes a basis for coming together. That's what, because I have incubated women self-help group movements in Bihar. So I sent women from Andhra Pradesh to Bihar way back in 2005-06, and they were able to do that magic. So I also sent our farmers who were able to do this natural farming to other states. So we need not, it is essential, critical, but it is highly doable. It doesn't take that much time. You see, I had, as I said, 20 years, but maybe at the lag of a year, 2 years, this can happen. So it's not a, but we have to invest in this. We have to factor this and invest in this. So initially we used to focus on how do we raise money for the women. So we used to say, okay, for 6 months you do savings, internal lending, recovery, you maintain accounts. We had a Pancha Sutras, which we used to talk about the essentials. And then we said, okay, 6 months later we tie you up with a bank. So actually Bihar did this very interestingly in very early days of self-help group movement. So they brought in the SRI movement. Very early days, another Pradhanite, Anil Verma. So he was responsible for actually seeding this idea in Bihar program very early days, second year or third year. So it has to be done. When it should be done is again, it can be done according to me together also. Because success in this enables them to come together. The very fact that you are together gives you courage to try. It's like you put together a virtuous cycle. So there is no particular lag required. It's because I hadn't thought of it. If I was more sensible, I would have done this 15 years ago, not when I started it. So actually this should have been done all over India some 20, 30 years ago. We are late, sir. So we have to move faster.
We take 2 questions together in the interest of time, and then
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sumit Bansal. I am a food technology graduate from Haryana. So my question is from marketing perspective, sir. So as you said that 85 to 86% of farmers are from small and marginal, having 1 hectare of land holding only.
Yes.
So as we are increasing the number of crops, say from 9 to 18 to 27, as you said, so aren't we reducing the bargaining power? We are improving the soil quality, but aren't we reducing the bargaining power for the farmer? And if we are doing so, is there any collective or anything that is helping for the farmer for the same?
Okay.
Yeah, so my name is Ved Prakash Singh from Mahila Abhivruddhi Society, Hyderabad. Sir, I have two small questions interconnected again. So while you explained a lot about the change in farming practices, I would like to know more about the experiences of RYSS and NCNF both. In what ways are you working towards bringing changes on the consumption side also? So while market-driven changes are well established, well known also, so that could also be a trigger factor for more farmers to join the movement itself. And as supplementary to this, so through anecdotal evidences, all these organic and natural farming products out in the market are sold at a very higher value. Point being said, that would fetch a higher value to the farmers and strengthen their position in the value chain. But what about the larger masses for whom the affordability would be a big factor, and those who also would want high quality foods also? So yes.
Okay. So they are little interrelated. See, this crop diversity also leads to market diversity. So there are some crops which are consumed by the family within the village. उसमें कोई problem नहीं है. So there are some crops which don't have to be processed. Vegetables, fruits. वो लेके क्या effort है वो बेचने में? You saw that lady, she's saying I am getting money every day, so what's the problem? So in this 12, 15, 20 crops, so there will be a few leading crops which require aggregation, processing, taking it outside, but the others are ones which no processing, limited processing, local markets. So this is up to the, how evolved that particular organization is in doing this. So it's entirely up to the people कि भाई क्या करेंगे. So here also I have some more slides, but essentially for that women in that video, so the main crop was a groundnut crop. So that they figured out how to sell. Anyway, they got a good price because people came to her for seed purpose. So anyway, she got a premium. But all others were local consumption within the village, outside the village. So I think we should not worry too much about it. People figure out. We should know that there is a perishable market, there is a non-perishable local market, non-perishable distant market. So we have to help. Even if they sell at the same price, nuksan kya hai? Even if they sell the same price as any other crop, nuksan to nahi hai, unka kharcha kam ho gaya. They are producing it at less cost. In fact, I scold many farmers who ask me for premium. I said, वो गरीब लोग कैसे खाएंगे आप प्रीमियम में बेचोगे तो? Because they are not very happy with my reply. But I asked them, did your yield go up? Yes, sir. खर्चा कम हो गया? Yes, sir. खाना, grains are good? Yes, sir. फिर कम दाम में बेचो. ज़्यादा लोग आएंगे. So they are not happy with that, but because the idea is to get more money. So that also ties up with what you are saying. But yes, we have not gone into the consumption side, because this itself is so important, and I don't have that kind of bandwidth. I should do everything. So I thought I focus on this transformation. This is a more difficult task. I don't think they should do that. I am part of NCNF. They should also be rooted on the ground, initiating the transformation. APMAs can do that. Yes.
That when we improve the resilience of the production system and the surrounding common lands and forest lands and all that, the resilience of farming actually improves. And we have seen examples in different agroecological regions. The problem with us is about the scale. And the second problem is convincing the scientific community.
Right.
I hope you will do something about that, sir. And it's really needed. We talk about soil microbes. We have seen it in the field.
Correct.
The farmers have seen it. But it is very difficult to impress someone in the administration or in agriculture universities.
So I think we have to set up our own universities up. So that's the reason why I am setting up this Global Agroecology Research Station. So I don't want to waste time trying to convince some scientists. I have to spend time convincing farmers. If something is good for the farmers, then it acquires a life of its own. And in fact, in our agroecology research station that we are setting up, our objective is to develop 10,000 farmer scientists. Why don't we regard farmers as scientists? They are the ones doing all the work, and they are not doing it for papers. They are doing it because their life depends on this kind of experiments. So you are absolutely right, but that dialogue has to change. And I have never taken that whatever the scientists are saying is correct, because if it's going against common sense, if it's going against, because it is this science which has brought us to this crisis. How can we expect the same science to take us out of the crisis? That is my argument. But you are scaling up, I am able to convince farmers. If not in the first year, second year, third year, farmers are convinced, because the methodology we have is very robust. It's also a very simple system. It's not a complicated system. So my advice is that people like us should actually come together and build a alternative discourse. If we have to depend on this kind of system to talk about this, it will be very difficult. So there is no easy solution, but I can assure you globally the wind is changing. There are more and more people talking about nature, biology, and they also want to see examples on ground. And that's why the big German delegation, they were so impressed, because their parliament has passed an enactment saying that any external assistance they give is only for agroecology. And this is also going to be the European Union's stand. In fact, they invited me, European Commission invited me to have a discussion with them. They invited all their delegations in Asia, Africa to listen to us, and so there is change happening. In fact, the biggest thing, US Aid invited me for a discussion. So they realized that we've been on this agriculture, green, so-called green agriculture bandwagon, but it's not doing good work on climate side. So this was a first dialogue I've had with them, so they've requested me, they said that we'll have more discussions with you on this. So there is a change, but not as quickly, but I think, sir, first let us work with people and let this change happen, because that is the more difficult task. So there is a lot of de-addiction required. So people think that we will not do that kind of work, and therefore the change will not happen. So we should not lose focus on the change on the ground. The science also, of course, at a different level we need to work on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so Dinesh, I think the scaling scientists, Naren and I can testify of how much we've changed in the SRI. You can scale farmers, you can never scale scientists changing their mindset.
Yeah, you have seen that, correct? Yes?
Yeah. So Kapil, I know you have a question, but you have an opportunity to discuss it over lunch with it's a comment, okay.
Everything is changing, global policies, and we realize that this is the only answer. मैं कपिल गुजरात में ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग के प्रमोशन के लिए 85 से काम करता हूँ, और ये आनंद एग्रीकल्चर यूनिवर्सिटी का स्टूडेंट हूँ मैं. Anyway, Now, what is the missing in the whole scenario? Everything is changing. I would say science is also changing. We have improved interdisciplinary. We need one Vijaykumar in Gujarat. Everything will be done. And with all modesty, you did talk about this, but this is very much required. Political and bureaucratic will is missing. Otherwise, the whole nation will change within 10 years. We need to talk about this. This is the missing part of the whole story today.
That we're going to discuss tomorrow, I thought. That's the workshop tomorrow.
I wanted this to get registered.
Absolutely. So I know there might be more questions, but we also have the Dr. Kurien Memorial Lecture at 3 p.m. at National Dairy Development Board. All of us have to have lunch at our respective places and reach there in time. So I'd like to thank Sri Vijaykumar ji for a wonderful lecture and a talk which actually inspired me. I guess in some sense he's made our task easier. We are planning to float a elective on managing sustainable transitions with the National Coalition for Natural Farming and others, which will be there in your 6th term. We need to discuss many more aspects of how such a sustainable transition can be managed. So let's keep this conversation going. I'd like to request Sri Arun Mehra ji to please come over and hand over this thing to Sri Vijaykumar ji. The bag is not important. What is important is what is inside the bag, which has been produced from the unit. Myself is a company that came yesterday and met many of us. So, Ashish, you must surely have some announcement to make. So you can come and do it instead of doing it on WhatsApp. Is there any vehicle being arranged? So please ensure that the buses do leave the buses in time. And ensure that they're there. For you, you missed your walkathon, so